For 3,000 years, one civilization pretty much dominated the ancient world. They left behind monuments so massive we're still scratching our heads trying to figure out how they built them. This is the story of ancient Egypt, a wild tale of gods, pharaohs, and a river that literally created an empire. We're going to break down how they did it and why their story is still so important today.
I mean, just think about that number. 3,000 years. That is a staggering amount of time. To put it in perspective, the mighty Roman Empire lasted for about 500 years. The United States, we're not even at 250 yet. So what was Egypt's secret? How in the world did they manage to last for millennia? That's the big question we're tackling.
And you know what? The answer, at its heart, is incredibly simple. Their entire civilization, all of it, their wealth, their power, their very survival, was built on the back of one single thing, the River Nile.
Okay, so before we dive deep, let's get a quick lay of the land. We're starting way back, around 3100 BCE, when Egypt first became one kingdom. Then, we'll hit the Old Kingdom. Yep, the age of the pyramids. After that, the golden ages of the Middle and New Kingdoms, all the way to the very end, with Cleopatra in 30 BCE. It's a heck of a journey.
All right, let's start at the beginning, with that foundation. You see, the stability that let Egypt last for so long wasn't just the river. It was this perfect storm of geography and one incredibly powerful, unifying idea.
And here is that big idea, divine kingship. Just try to imagine this. Your ruler isn't a president or a king in the way we think of them. He is a literal god walking on earth. This belief gave the pharaoh absolute power and made society incredibly stable. I mean, who's going to argue with a god? He was the bridge between humanity and the heavens.
And this whole concept was baked in right from the start, when a king named Menes brought the two halves of Egypt together. So suddenly you have one kingdom, one god-king, and one river. And the Nile was special. Every single year, like clockwork, it would gently flood and leave behind this super rich, fertile soil. That meant they always had food, which meant they had wealth, which meant they could build and run a powerful, organized country.
So, you've got stability, you've got money, and you've got this intense religious belief. What do you do with all that? Well, you start building for eternity. This brings us to the Old Kingdom and its most iconic achievement, the Age of the Pyramids. So why the pyramids? It actually follows a pretty simple logic. For them, death wasn't the end. It was just a doorway. Step 1, they believed your soul, or Ka, needed a permanent home base to return to. Step 2, for that to work, you had to keep the body from decaying. Hello, mummification. And step 3, if you're a god king, your body needs the ultimate eternal fortress, and that is a pyramid.
And the Great Pyramid of Giza is this whole belief system made out of millions of tons of stone. It is so much more than a tomb. It's a statement, a giant billboard declaring the pharaoh's divine power and the civilization's obsession with eternal life. An entire nation focused all of its resources on this one single goal. Just incredible. Now, after the Old Kingdom, things got a little shaky for a while, but Egypt pulled itself back together and entered its most glorious, most powerful phase, the New Kingdom. This was the era of empire, of legendary pharaohs and wealth that is just hard to even imagine.
During the New Kingdom, Egypt became a true superpower. Pharaohs weren't just building tombs anymore. They were leading armies. Rulers like Thutmose III, they call him the Napoleon of Egypt, pushed the empire's borders way out, conquering new lands and bringing back unimaginable riches. All that wealth fueled a golden age of art and the construction of these absolutely mind-boggling temples.
But right at the peak of all this power, one pharaoh tried to tear the whole system down. A guy named Amenhotep IV basically tossed thousands of years of religion right out the window. He said, nope, all those gods you worship, they're gone. There's only one god now, the sun disk, Aten. He even changed his own name to Akhenaten and moved the capital city. It was a revolution that shook Egypt to its core, and it might just be the world's very first experiment with the idea of one god.
Akhenaten's big revolution, well, it didn't stick. After he died, his ideas were basically erased. His successor, a young boy named Tutankhamun, brought back all the old gods. And for thousands of years, King Tut was really just a footnote in history. But that all changed in 1922. That's when archaeologist Howard Carter found his tomb, almost completely untouched, giving the whole world an unbelievable peek into the wealth of the New Kingdom.
But before Egypt's power really started to fade, there was one final epic blaze of glory, Ramses II. Ramses the Great. This guy was a master builder, an incredible leader, and he ruled for over 60 years. He put his stamp all over Egypt with colossal temples like Abu Simbel, and he even signed one of the world's first ever known peace treaties with a rival empire. What a legend.
But, no empire lasts forever. After the titans of the New Kingdom, a long, slow decline began. It was a combination of fighting within the country and the rise of new, tough empires on the world stage that just started to chip away at Egypt's power.
It wasn't one big collapse. It was more like a repeating cycle. For centuries, Egypt kept getting invaded and ruled by different foreign powers. First Libyans, then Nubians, then Assyrians, then Persians. The once untouchable empire became a prize that everybody else wanted to win, passed from one invader to the next. And this brings us to the final dramatic act in the story of an independent Egypt. An act completely defined by its last and probably its most famous ruler.
A new force completely changes the game: Alexander the Great. He sweeps across the world and conquers Egypt. After he dies, one of his top generals, a man named Ptolemy, takes control and starts a whole new dynasty, a Greek dynasty. So for the next 300 years, the pharaohs ruling Egypt were not Egyptian at all. They were Greek.
And the very last of that line was Cleopatra VII. And forget the myths, she was a brilliant political strategist. She spoke multiple languages and knew her kingdom's only hope for survival was to play the rising superpowers in Rome against each other. So she formed legendary alliances, first with Julius Caesar and then with Mark Antony, in a desperate, high-stakes gamble to keep Egypt free.
In the end, it was a losing battle. After she and Antony were defeated by Octavian, the man who would become Rome's first emperor, Augustus, it was all over. Cleopatra took her own life, and with her death, the long, long line of pharaohs came to an end. 3,000 years of pharaonic rule were finished. Egypt was now just another province in the massive Roman Empire.
But even though the pharaohs were gone, the civilization they built left a huge mark on the world. Its influence didn't just vanish, it got absorbed by everyone who came after.
I mean, their achievements are just foundational. They gave us one of the first systems of writing, a 365-day solar calendar, which is basically the one we still use today. They made incredible progress in medicine, and their engineering, we are still studying their methods. Their art, their spirituality, their science, it all shaped the ancient world and echoed down to us.
So we end on this thought. The physical empire, the stones and the sand, it eventually crumbled. But the power of its ideas, the belief in eternity, the drive to build something that lasts forever, this deep spirituality, have those ever really died? They've fascinated us ever since, and in that way,